Have you ever stared at a jug of milk, sniffed it, looked at the date, and poured it down the sink even though it smelled fine? Or maybe you've thrown away a bag of rice because the best buy date was yesterday. What if I told you that the date on your food has almost nothing to do with safety and everything to do with a chaotic mix of Chicago gangsters, Victorian swill factories, and marketing gimmicks? Why does a bottle of water, which has existed for billions of years, expire next Tuesday? And is it true that Al Capone is the reason we stamp dates on dairy? In this video, we are going to unravel the massive, expensive lie sitting in your refrigerator. We'll uncover how 8,000 babies died from Frank milk in New York, how a British supermodel changed the way we buy bread, and why you're throwing away hundreds of dollars of perfectly good food every year. Stick around because by the end of this, you'll know exactly when to trust the label and when to trust your nose. So, picture this. It's 1922, and Howard Carter cracks open the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Inside, amidst all the gold and chariots, they find these jars, and inside the jars, honey. 3,000-year-old honey. And the crazy part is, it was still edible, like you could put that on toast today. But then, walk into your kitchen, grab that plastic bear of honey from the pantry, and flip it over. It probably says it expires in like 2 years. So we have a substance that is chemically immortal on the left and a best buy date on the right. This is the fundamental lie we need to talk about. The date isn't about biology, it's about something else entirely. See, we've been trained, brainwashed really, to treat that printed date like it's a biological stopwatch. Like at midnight on the use-by date, a switch flips and your yogurt turns into poison. But here's the kicker. With the exception of infant formula, the federal government does not regulate those dates. Seriously. That sell-by date on your cookies, the manufacturer just kinda made it up. It's a guess, a suggestion. It's usually about when they think the food will taste its peak best, not when it becomes dangerous. And this brings us to the biggest misunderstanding in your fridge, the difference between rot and risk. We think that if food looks okay, it's safe, and if it smells weird, it's deadly. But biologically, that's wrong. The bacteria that make food smell sour or get slimy, spoilage bacteria, they're gross, sure, but they rarely make you sick. The killers, Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli, they are ninjas. They're odorless, tasteless, and invisible. Your deli meat could be perfectly within the use-by date and be lethal, while that sour milk might just taste bad but be harmless. So we rely on the date because we don't trust our senses anymore. But our noses are actually incredibly sophisticated evolutionary tools. We evolved to smell rot. We can detect the volatile compounds of decay from across the room. But because the industrial food system has terrified us with these invisible pathogens, we've outsourced our survival instinct to a printing machine in a factory. We're tossing perfectly good food because a stamp told us to, ignoring the fact that our ancestors survived for millennia by just sniffing the jug. And honestly, the waste is astronomical. We'll get to the money later, and it is a lot of money you're losing. But first, I gotta know, what is the oldest, most questionable item currently sitting in your fridge? Be honest. Is there a jar of mustard from 2018? A salad dressing that's basically a science experiment? Drop a comment below. I want to see who has the most vintage refrigerator right now. Okay, let's rewind, like way back, because we aren't the first people to obsess over labeling food. If you go to Rome today, there is a literal mountain called Monte Testaccio. It's not a natural hill. It is a trash heap made of 53 million broken olive oil jars, or amphora. And if you pick up a shard, you might see painted writing on it. These are called tituli picti. They were the barcodes of the ancient world. The Romans were obsessed with traceability, but not because they were worried about tummy aches. They were worried about fraud. These labels listed the weight, so you knew the merchant didn't short you, the origin, and the merchant's name. It was about taxes and liability. If the wine turned to vinegar, you knew who to blame. But there was no use-by date. You just knew. If the wine was old, you drank it fast or used it for vinegar. It was common sense. But then the Industrial Revolution happened, and things got gross. Fast forward to 1850s New York City. The population is exploding. People are leaving farms and crowding into tenements. There's no refrigeration. You can't get fresh milk from the country to the city before it spoils. So the city creates a monster, the distillery dairy. These were windowless stables built inside the city, right next to whiskey distilleries. Why? Because the distilleries had tons of boiling hot fermented grain mash left over, waste. So they fed this boiling sludge to the cows. It was called swill milk, and it is the stuff of nightmares. These cows were sick. Their teeth fell out from the hot mash. They had ulcers. They were so weak they had to be held up by ropes just to be milked. And the milk they produced, it wasn't milk. It was this bluish, watery, pus-filled liquid. I know, I'm sorry for the visual, but you need to understand why we got so paranoid. To sell this blue sludge, the dairies adulterated it. They added plaster of Paris, yes, the stuff you use to patch walls, to make it white. They added molasses to hide the taste of rot. They added eggs to create a fake cream line. And then they sold it to the poorest families in New York as pure country milk. This wasn't just a scam, it was a massacre. It's estimated that 8,000 infants died every year in New York City from drinking this poison. It took a massive exposé by Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper. Think of them as the Vice News of the 1850s, to blow the lid off. They published graphic engravings of the cows, the stables, the dying kids. It forced the government to step in. This was the moment trust died. You couldn't just look at milk and know it was safe anymore. You needed the government to tell you. Okay, so we have regulations now, but who actually gave us the date, the stamp? Well, legend has it we have Al Capone to thank. Yes, that Al Capone, Scarface. The story goes like this. Al Capone's niece gets sick from drinking sour milk. Capone, trying to be a man of the people, a modern-day Robin Hood, demands the Chicago City Council pass a law requiring expiration dates on milk bottles to save the children. It's a great story. It's also mostly mob propaganda. Here's the reality. Prohibition was ending. The mob needed a new revenue stream. Milk was a cash business. Everyone drank it, and the markup was better than booze. Capone's family, specifically his brother Ralph Bottles Capone, took over the dairy industry. They bullied their way in, but the local milk unions blocked them. So the Capones realized something brilliant. If they lobbied for a law requiring a freshness date, it would force a standard that only their modern fast distribution network could meet. Plus, the mob allegedly controlled the manufacturing of the stamping equipment. So, if the law passed, every bottle of milk sold in Chicago had to be stamped by a machine that put money in Capone's pocket. The expiration date didn't start as a safety feature, it started as a barrier to entry, a way to squeeze out the competition. It was a racketeering toll booth masquerading as public health. But the date as we know it, the sell-by date on your sandwich, that comes from the 1970s. Enter Marks & Spencer, the British retailer. They had a problem. Their cakes were going stale, and store managers didn't know when to pull them. So they invented the cold chain and printed sell-by dates on the packages. It was an internal code. It was for the stock boys, not the shoppers. But then shoppers saw the dates, and they loved them. They started digging to the back of the shelf to find the fresher date. M&S realized this was marketing gold. They launched a huge campaign starring the supermodel Twiggy bragging about their sell-by dates. Suddenly, freshness wasn't something you tasted, it was a number you bought. The date became the product. And once that cat was out of the bag, there was no putting it back. Which brings us to the absolute dumpster fire that is American food law today. Because the feds never stepped in to standardize this, every state just did its own thing. Take Montana. For decades, Montana had a law that milk had to be sold within 12 days of pasteurization. 12 days! Modern pasteurization keeps milk good for like 21 days easily. So what happened? Perfectly good milk, thousands of gallons of it, was legally required to be thrown in the trash or poured down the drain in Montana simply because it hit the 12-day mark. It was effectively a trade barrier to keep out-of-state milk, which couldn't get there fast enough off the shelves. It protected local dairies, sure, but it created mountains of waste based on junk science. Or look at eggs. If your eggs have a USDA shield, the sell-by date can't be more than 30 days from packing. But the eggs are technically good for 3 to 5 weeks after that date. But in some states, you can't even use a sell-by date. It's a mess. And because manufacturers sell across state lines, they usually just slap the strictest, earliest date on the package to be safe. They're protecting themselves from liability, not protecting you from salmonella. And who pays for this liability shield? You do. The average American family of 4 throws away about $455 worth of edible food every year. That's nearly $2,000 wasted over 4 years. Nationally, it's billions. We are literally farming land, using billions of gallons of water, packaging food, shipping it across the country, and then burying it in a landfill because a sticker said Oct 14, and today is Oct 15. It's not just money, it's the planet. Food waste is a massive contributor to greenhouse gases. When that expired lettuce rots in a landfill, it releases methane. If food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of carbon after the US and China. And a huge chunk of that waste comes from confusion. We don't know what best buy means versus use by, so we just toss it to be safe. So how do we fix this? Well, Congress is actually trying. The Food Date Labeling Act has been floating around trying to standardize everything into 2 phrases. Best if used by for quality, meaning, hey, this cracker might be a little stale, but it won't kill you. And use by for safety, meaning seriously throw this out. It sounds simple, but industry lobbying is intense. But the real future is smarter than ink. Companies are developing smart labels, little gel tabs or sensors that stick to the package. They react to temperature and time. If your chicken got left in a hot truck for 4 hours, the label turns red before the printed date. If it stayed perfectly cold, the label stays green past the printed date. It measures the actual biological reality of the food, not just the calendar. Imagine a store where the price of the milk drops automatically as it gets older. You'd buy the old milk for half price to bake a cake today and leave the new milk for someone who needs it for the week. Dynamic pricing, smart labels, standardized laws. The solutions exist. We just need to stop being so afraid of the date. And we need to remember what food actually is. Fermentation, things like kimchi, yogurt, cheese. That's literally controlled rot. We've been eating old food for thousands of years. The bacteria in yogurt are there to protect the food from pathogens. A date on a jar of pickles is almost comical. It's vinegar and salt. It's practically a mummy. So, here are the rules of engagement until the laws change. Hard cheese with mold? Cut an inch off. The rest is fine. Mold has roots, but they can't penetrate hard cheese easily. Canned goods? Unless the can is dented or bulging, which means botulism, which kills you, it's good for years. Meat and fish? Okay, respect the use-by date there. Listeria is no joke. But milk? Sniff it. Bread? Look at it. Honey is immortal. We have to stop letting Al Capone's ghost and a liability-fearing lawyer dictate our dinner. The expiration date is a tool, not a commandment. It's a guide, not a god. It's a liability shield born from a history of swill milk and racketeering. So the next time you look at that plastic bear of honey and see an expiration date, remember the tomb of Tutankhamun. Remember that the freshest-looking milk in 1850 was poison, and the oldest food in history is still safe today. The timeline is a lie. Trust your senses. And maybe, just maybe, keep that milk for one more day. If you learned something new today, or if you're now terrified of 1850s dairy, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And seriously, check your fridge. Tell me in the comments, what is the oldest thing in there? I'm betting someone has a bottle of soy sauce from the Obama administration. If you want to know more about how the food industry tricks your brain, click this video right here. I'll see you in the next one. Stay fresh.